No, don't for a second think that your love for the games of this generation is only some nostalgia-fueled lust for the past. No matter what metric you're measuring, the Xbox 360 or PS3 era was truly insane. I mean, it was the height of the competition between PlayStation and Xbox. Online gaming also found its stride and was mass adopted. And yeah, the games were awesome. And that's what we're here to talk about today. The games that made this generation what it was. So they were, to put it simply, just built different. I mean, this was the last generation to truly provide games on the discs that we purchased and put into our consoles. Once you ripped that plastic off the case and put that game in, you were taken straight to the main menu to start your playthrough. It's something that we took for granted back then, but nowadays, even if you buy the disc, you still have to install the entire game and any pre-existing updates before you can even open the game up. And also, speaking of updates, it was within this generation the foundation was laid for the after-the-fact updates that could change games after they had been released. It's now a practice that has taken over the industry, allowing it for it to become perfectly normal for games to release broken and sometimes hardly functioning before then being fixed way after the fact. But in the Xbox 360 generation, developers couldn't afford a game to launch in such a state. The new technology of updates was relegated to bug fixes that occurred over time, not the complete version overhauls to fix a product that we see nowadays. Games from that generation needed to release with all of their content within the game at launch in order to be successful at all. I like using the Halo 3 to Halo Infinite comparison as an example. Halo 3 released complete with a full campaign that contained a beginning, middle, and an end. A multiplayer mode with multiple playlists, both for ranked and social players, a forge mode for players to create their own experiences, custom game lobby support, and theater mode for both campaign and multiplayer so people could record and share their gameplay with friends. This was all in 2007, because if Halo 3 released without those things, like let's say forge mode, there would have been no way to patch something like that into the game after the fact. And there's no way the game would have been nearly as successful as it was. And then we have Halo Infinite. In 2021, it launched with the multiplayer first that only contained roughly 4 basic playlists, knowing that they would be adding more with future updates. And then the campaign launched, with a story that, while mostly complete, left many threads unanswered on purpose in anticipation for upcoming story expansions, which then never came. Then Forge wasn't in a finished state for the launch of the game, so it was patched later via an update, after much of the player base had already abandoned the game. The slow drip of content is the most flagged reason for why Halo Infinite was pretty lackluster compared to the past games. So you see what I'm saying here? It's not that every game from the 360 generation was objectively better than every game today, but back then games released with certain standards that larger studios were always held to, and the basic of these being releasing a game in a functioning state. I'd like to see games replicate the Xbox 360 style of releasing with all of the expected content, but for that to happen, games would probably need to adopt another pillar of what made games from the 360 generation so great, and that's their size and scope. Games from the 360 days were smaller in just about every way you can imagine, from sheer file size to map size to the scope of the development for the company behind the game. For games to release on time in a polished state and to fit on a disc, with the bonus of not taking 10 plus years to make, they by necessity were smaller than the games we're getting today. And while sure, I really like some of the behemoth releases we're getting these days, it's unfortunate to see the entire gaming landscape shifting into these giant development cycles, just to push back a game 3 or 4 times and still release it to an underwhelming response. Then they go and spend the next year or 2 fixing the game patch by patch. And to be fair, it's been refreshing to see some of the hits of the last year or 2 be games that took a smaller size and scope. I mean, look at Expedition 33, or Dispatch, or Helldivers 2. These games aren't following the Rockstar or Naughty Dog trend of really large development cycles, and it paid off for them. I mean, I personally enjoyed Mafia: The Old Country, and how even the size and style of the open world of that game took inspiration from Mafia 2, the series' 360 release. Hangar 13 learned from the mistake that came from Mafia 3's move towards the Grand Theft Auto competitor style scope. They tried to add too much fluff into the game's campaign, and it suffered due to the repetitive nature of it all. Scaling things back and keeping everything focused on the central narrative is exactly what some games really need in order to succeed. And a general balance of size versus focus is something I think we had seen perfected within the Xbox 360 generation. With games like Mafia 2, a studio knowing its own limits. I mean, even the largest games of that time, like Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5 and Skyrim, these games are certainly not small by any means. But they weren't so obsessed with expanding in scope that they lost focus on what was important, the player experience. These games still have soul or style or sauce, whatever phrase you want to use. We see too often that games will sacrifice focus on a central theme in order to expand in size to cover everything. I think the best example of this is Starfield. A commonly used saying when discussing Starfield is large as an ocean, deep as a puddle. Whereas if you were to try and apply this description to the Xbox 360's Skyrim, it would come out something like large as a lake and deep as a lake. I think Skyrim is just a good lake. Now, obviously, in 2011, Skyrim was massive, both in terms of map size and amount of content. But maybe a game like Skyrim exposes that there is this sort of cap in how large games can and should strive to be. Skyrim was still at a size manageable for a team putting a game together by hand. To achieve the size that Bethesda foresaw Starfield reaching, a lot of that handcrafted nature had to go away, and a lot of the environments ended up being copied and pasted all over a procedurally generated planet. I mean, the copy and pasted environments alone tell us that it was solely Starfield's ambition that led to its poor reception. In the year 2026, we're really going to see this concept tested with Grand Theft Auto 6. We're going to learn potentially that there might be a thing as too big, as too large of scope, as too long of a development. Because if the game comes out and is broken or flops in some sort of way, it's really going to be because of the boundaries they were trying to push. And if Grand Theft Auto 6 does succeed in what it's trying to do and becomes the biggest game ever, that kind of shows us a few things. One, that you can be huge and grow in size and scope if you're willing to put the time, effort, and manpower into reaching those goals, not take shortcuts. Delay a game if you need to. But then I also really hope that the rest of the industry doesn't try and recreate the same thing, but with a studio half the size. But getting back on track, the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 generation was just a great time to be a teenage gamer. While nostalgia certainly plays a role in those feelings, I hope these points illustrate that there were truly some aspects of this period that were better than the counterparts we have today. But I've only explained how the single-player side of gaming has changed since the 360 days. Online gaming was arguably better in the 360 generation also. Check out the video on screen now to see how online gaming has changed between the 360 generation to today, and how I think it's made gaming feel more lonely than before. Thanks for watching.